Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter, Music Education. I'm so excited to be back for the spring semester, for winter, I guess. It doesn't feel like spring. I'm excited to be back to share a little bit more this semester about my lessons that I'm sharing every week and the processes and the resources about how I share those lessons. I'm excited to share a little bit about concerts, some technique ideas, some scaffolding. I'm just excited to take this time to share with y'all because, you know, music teachers, we don't get enough time to share with one another and to talk through our lessons and to give each other ideas. So that's what I'm hoping to do in this series of videos over the next about 15 weeks. And to share just some of my ideas and things that I'm doing in my classroom and to see if it might work for you and see how you might adapt it for your own classroom. So if you have questions along the way, please leave questions or comments in the comments section below. If you're listening to this as a podcast or you're rewatching it on YouTube or Facebook weeks later, you can still leave comments and questions. I'll try and get to those as quickly as I can. And I always try and go back and answer questions when they pop up. If you are interested in any of the resources or ideas or books or things that I share in the video, there's a link in the Facebook caption or on Instagram in my LinkedIn profile or wherever it is you're watching. I'm sure there's a link that will take you to a page on my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, that says Musical Mondays Recap 2019-2020. And I try and list on that page all of the links and resources and books and places that you can find the things that I'm talking about in these videos in case you want to use them for your very own classroom. Also, another place where you can connect and get some ideas is the Every Moment Matters Facebook group. It's just another place to share and get ideas and talk through things that might work for you or how you might change them and to get more ideas for your classroom. One last thing, next week, next Thursday, I'm so excited. I'm going to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Oklahoma Music Educators Association. I'm going to be sharing 2 workshops there. So if you're in Oklahoma, I hope that you'll be there for OKMEA. And if you see me there, please come and say hi. I know like 2 people in Oklahoma and I'd love to meet at least 4. So if you're there, come and say hi. And the following week, I'm going to be at the Georgia Music Educators Association. That's my state conference, my home state. And it's the first time I've been here during the conference I've been able to present. So I'm excited that some of my sessions were accepted and I'll be presenting 2 sessions there at GMEA, and that is the 24th and 25th. So if you're in Oklahoma or Georgia this month and you're going to our state conventions, I'd love to see you and chat and talk about music ed. Okay, so my plan for this video today, I'm going to talk through my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons a little bit later. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I plan for concerts because I have 2 concerts coming up. I have 1st grade and 2nd grade coming up. So I'm going to be talking just a little bit more about some of those plans and how I plan. And I did a lot of that planning today I did a lot of rechecking through, going through, figuring out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I plan that and why. And I'm going to be sharing some of the new fun things that I found over the break or that I found recently. And so I'm going to just chat a little bit about that. And in fact, that's where I'm going to start with the new stuff. So one of the new things you've probably seen in the past, I've talked about the little digital clicker that I use. Anytime I'm presenting or even just honestly in my classroom when I'm presenting with my students, I always use a clicker so that I'm not tied to my laptop. So if I'm using a PowerPoint or something or a PDF in presentation mode, I always try and have a clicker so that I have that in my hand so I can be mobile. And I got a new clicker, the one I have for my classroom. I love it. It's great. I could have just bought a replacement that is exactly the same. The clicker I have is like $12. It's super solid. It's worked for so long. I've dropped it about 400 times. On the 401st time, it started jamming in sort of an odd way, and it still works, but not the most consistent. And I was like, well, hey, for another $12, I could get a new one. So I actually decided to get a different model. This is a slightly different one. This is Norfe brand. I don't know if that's exactly how you say it. But this is cool, and I'm going to try it out in my classroom, and I'm going to try it out with presentations and see how it works. And I'm going to have my old one as a backup in case I need it. But a couple of things about this one. So what you can do is here on the end, you pull this out, and there's a little USB. You just pop that into the laptop or whatever it is, the computer you're using that's hooked up to your presenter. And when you're not using it, it magnets right here in the end, so that's sort of cool. It has a laser, so you can laser point onto your presentation. It has a couple buttons, one for forward, one for back. This one, I think, if you're not in PowerPoint, it clicks it to PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever you're presenting in. There are a couple functions I have not yet mastered. One is if you press and hold the button, it will do, well, this button, I think, it'll do a black screen. So if you're presenting and you just want it to go dark for a second, just so that kids aren't looking at the screen and they can focus more on you, just press and hold and it'll just be black for a second. I had that on my old presenter and I loved it, because if I wanted to, when the kids came in, if I wanted it to be dark so they didn't know there was a presentation going, you could just have a black screen, and that's super helpful. And then when you're ready to click, you can just click on. The other one, you can press and hold and it like starts the presentation. So if you have PowerPoint on your computer, and what I really hate is when I like click too far and it's like presentation over. I hate that, because then I have to like go to my computer and go back to start presentation. If you press and hold this button, it'll just start it for you, which is sort of cool. So if you're out of the presentation mode, you can press and hold and it'll present. And the last thing that's really cool is it has a volume button. So if you're listening to a video or music, you can click up or down on volume. How cool is that? So this one was, I think, $12. Break the bank. But it's on the links page if you're interested in using this exact one and trying it out. Like I said, I'm trying it out this semester, so if it fails, I will report back. If it is amazingly successful, I will report back. But if you want to go on this journey with me, the link is on the links page, and you can get this exact one from Amazon. It came in 2 days because Amazon Prime, and it was $12. So if it doesn't work, I'm not, out a boatload of money. It's pretty inexpensive, and that's pretty easy to use so far, and I can't wait to see how it works with kids. Okay, another thing I'm trying out, and I was inspired. I went to my local Kodai chapter this fall, and I went to a really great workshop. It was a chapter share, the Kodai Educators of Georgia, and there was someone who presented and was using a mountain dulcimer. And I knew very little about mountain dulcimer, because where I grew up in the Midwest, we didn't have them a lot. And now that I live in the South, in the Appalachian region, it's a little bit more common. And I wanted to get one for my class to try out with kids, to give them that sort of sound in our songs. So I asked for one for Christmas. Dulcimers are expensive. I actually posted, I think, on the Every Moment Matters Facebook group, who has a lead on a nice starter dulcimer, and a lot of people were like, this is a really great one, $200. So I was like, that is not a starter. For me, that is like, I'm good at it, and I'm going to keep being good at it and play it consistently sort of price range. So I actually went back and asked my friend at the Kodai chapter, and she recommended this one. It's called a Simplicity Dulcimer, I think, or an Easy Dulcimer. It only has 3 strings. It actually comes from Backyard Music, and there's a link on the links page. This part is actually cardboard, and I stressed out about that because I was like, cardboard? But all my friends who had them were like, no, actually, it's pretty nice. It's good quality. So I got one, and I'm excited to try it out with students. And if you are intimidated by the dulcimer, there are some really fun videos online. The book comes with this little booklet that says, Meet the Friendly Dulcimer. And it is hilarious. I was like, okay, I'm just going to tune it before I start playing around, right? Well, there's this whole 2 or 3 pages about it's okay if you don't know how to play. It's okay if you don't know how to find notes. Here's how you just tune it. If you're, just really super, it's treating me like I have absolutely no musical experience, because probably some people who get this don't. I was looking through what notes? I'm going to tune it. What notes do I need to find? And it was no, it's really easy. Tune it to itself. Tune it by this. So it's super fun that it has such a user-friendly little helper. There are some great videos on their website. And then it also has really great song info sheets in here. There's another little pamphlet, Start Playing Today. Oh my gosh. And it has little cheat sheets on the back too. But the thing I really like about it, and if you're an ORF person, you'd probably like this too. You can play it so that you play chords. So for instance, let's see if I can play this correctly. I can hold down a couple notes, and it's sitting on my lap, which just makes it really easy. So you can just sort of look down at what you're doing and play. So if I'm playing it incorrectly here, because it's supposed to sit in your lap, but you can play chords if you want. But the really wonderful thing about it is that this one has 3 strings, and the top 2 are the same. So there's a bass string, middle string, and the melody string. And so what the bottom 2 strings do is just play a drone. So like my Orff Heart is like, oh, perfect. But the cool thing is then you can... So Breaking Up Christmas is a song that I shared about a couple days ago on my Facebook page. It's a blog post I wrote a couple years ago. But if I wanted to play Breaking Up Christmas, which is an Appalachian song on this Appalachian instrument, the bottom 2 notes just play a drone, and then on the top string I can play the melody. I have played this instrument a total of probably 10 minutes. Like before this video, I was like, a couple days ago, I was like, I don't know, I haven't used it yet. I'm going to use it in my class. I'm going to figure it out, but I'm just going to noodle around with it. I probably paid 10, 15 minutes, and it is so simple that you can really play things pretty easily. So even if you're slow. So there's a string that's playing the melody. And then the bottom 2 just play a drone. You can strum in whatever pattern you want. You could play it as chords. The thing that I think is so cool for my classroom is it's going to give a more authentic sound to these Appalachian songs that we're sort of learning in class, because my students are from this region that feels just so great and authentic. What I really like about it also, as from like a classroom management standpoint, is I set it on my lap. And if I look down at it, even if I have to really focus on the dulcimer, all I have to do is do this to look up, and I can see everything in front of me. As opposed to like, if I'm doing this with a ukulele, if I'm not sure about it, I'm not watching kids. Or if I have, an upright piano and my back is turned to them or whatever. This is really nice because in a second I can just look up and I can see what's going on. If for some reason I lose the melody, I can just play open strings and it'll give me a drone. So that's really nice as far as classroom management, and the song, it makes every song pretty easy, which is why they sort of call it the Simplicity Dulcimer. So like I said, this one comes from Backyard Music. I am not sponsored by them. They don't even know I'm sharing about it, but it's a really simple, easy instrument to use. There's a link on my links page if you're interested in finding that exact dulcimer. This one, this beautiful one with a cardboard body, you can actually make your own. You can get the cardboard base, paint it whatever color you want, and then they have a kit to make your own, and you can put it all together and do that yourself. I did not want to do that, but you can. You could still paint and decorate this if you wanted, but I didn't want to do that. They come in 4 different colors if you want them pre-painted. Otherwise, you can make your own, which is really cool. And this cardboard is not just like flimsy; it is pretty substantial. So I'm not worried about it falling apart. But if you want to get this one, it's a really great one so far from Backyard Music, and I've seen it in action at the Kodai workshop, and it worked so great. So I absolutely believe that it's going to work for me. Here's hoping. And I'm going to start using it in my classroom, so I'll let you know how that goes this year. Okay, so those are a couple things that I've been using in my classroom. I just want to share, or I'm going to use in my classroom. I wanted to share about, it's an experiment for me. So, new year, time to grow, try new things. So I'll let you know how they go. If you decide to get a clicker like mine for your computer, or if you want to get a dulcimer and, strum away with me, we can compare notes. It'd be really fun. But those are a couple things I'm trying out new this year in 2020. So one of the things I like to do in January, sort of as a refocus when kids come back to catch their attention, to get their brains going, I do in January a little bit of a focus on composers, not a huge one, but I put out composer books and I put a composer bulletin board, a musician, composer, performer bulletin board out in the hallway, and I try and focus on that a little bit more just to sort of get them thinking in a different way. And I don't always do a focus on composers, and January just felt like a great time to start a little bit more of a push for that, because we've gotten past a lot of the expectations for the year. They know what my classroom's going to be like. They know some of the things that we're going to do there, so this adds another layer to that. So I'm going to show you the bulletin board I use. There's I made this set called Rockin' All Year, and it's basically a bulletin board set for every month, and for every month I've chosen 30 performers or composers or musicians or famous musical people to highlight, and each page has a new person and a profile about them and tells a little bit about their life. So let me just show you a couple. So, for example, and I did these several years ago, and I just, maybe a year and a half ago, I redid the colors. So I reprinted them today and relaminated them, so that's why they're not cut out. But, so Mozart is born in January. And so in January, I have this profile. It shows his birthday, has his name, has a little tiny bio about him. And then this goes on the wall, and there are 30 of these profiles. So some other profiles you'd see that are, let's see if I can find another composer in here who I pulled out. Francois Poulenc. Okay, let's see, who else do I have? Philip Glass, also a composer, not the same era or style, but fun to give kids another name to compare against and to see someone else who's a little bit different. Let's see. Okay, and then not only do I have some of those like old names like composers, I have other people like Janis Joplin. It's fun to see her name up there and compare her against some of those other people. Etta James, of course, because of where I live, I can't forget Dolly Parton, like we're a stone's throw from Dolly World, so I had to put that in there. Elvis Presley was also born in January 8th, celebrated his birthday in a couple days. Some other names, and this is a new edition, I'm really excited about this one. Lin-Manuel Miranda is born in January, and Justin Timberlake. So all these people who are born in January, and it was hard to limit to 30. January is like jam-packed. I have them all on this little calendar so kids can go through and see who was born on what day. But this just, as they're waiting to come into the music room or as they're walking through on the way to the lunchroom, it just catches their eye, and they like to see those composers and those musicians and sort of like see those great examples of musical people, and it gets them thinking about careers in music. It gets them thinking about famous names that they might know, songs they might know, connections they might have. And so I have one of these sets for every month of the year. So I'm putting out January right now, and I'll switch over in February to a whole new set of composers and musicians and artists who are born in that month. But it gets kids thinking about musical people, and not just composers from hundreds of years ago, but names that they know now, like Justin Timberlake and, Dolly Parton, other people that they know. I do set out some other books this month that are on the shelf, and even if I don't read them to kids, I put them out for kids to see. One of the cool things I've been able to do is the Tech Lab teacher will have a station for kids who finish early, or will have tasks for kids who finish early or who, on an off day or whatever. If she can find, or if I can find a video on YouTube of someone reading one of these musical books, I'll send it to her, and kids will get to watch a video of these books being read in their downtime in other classes. And then she posts that on her page, and so kids who are in the after school program or have time in their classroom can access those videos. So for example, Mozart Finds a Melody. It's a fun little book by Stephen Costanza, and because Mozart's born in January, what a great book to throw out there. And this book excuse me, is about Mozart sort of trying to pick out music to get his mind going, and he's inspired by a bird, and it's sort of cool to see that inspiration process of what gets a composer's mind going. It's a fun story, kids like it, so that's one that I always put out, even if we don't always read it, so that kids can see and access either in my room or in the Tech Lab. A sort of fun updated version of that is this book called Khalida and the Most Beautiful Song. And this is by Amanda Mokel. I'll just read a tiny little part of this one to you because I really love this one. This one's pretty new to me. Perhaps it was the twinkling of a bright star or the wings of a high-flying owl that awoke the song one night. It was time. Khalida was between barely awake and fast asleep when the song swirled into her bedroom. It tickled her fingers and dipped into her ear. It was a beautiful song. She had to catch it. Here's Khalida at the piano. Back to bed, Khalida. You can play in the morning. After breakfast, she tried to play the song again, but her ears couldn't find it. Her fingers couldn't remember it. She played the first few notes over and over, willing the rest of the song to come. Time to catch the bus, Khalida. Perhaps it was the butterfly settling on the windowsill or the sun sending a rainbow across the chalkboard that made Khalida hear the song again. She would catch it this time. And I love the illustrations. I love that this sort of glossy overlay on top of the picture shows like this idea of the song coming through and her like inspired by this thing she hears in her head. What was it that inspired that? So she rushes off to piano, and of course again she's stopped. Back to class, Khalida, and she's not able to do it. And when she's at piano lessons, when she has a chance, she can't quite catch it. So it's really cool. It's this idea about inspiration. It's this idea about what gives you that idea of a song, what inspires composition. And so it's just a fun book, and I love that it's just this beautiful little girl who is inspired to do it, because that makes little girls and little boys and little people who are reading this book or hearing this book think like, oh, I don't have to be an old white-haired composer. I don't have to be a famous performer. I don't have to be an adult. I can be me, and I can be inspired by this music that I hear that comes to me, and I can create too. And so Khalida and the Most Beautiful Song, it's new to me, but it's been out, I think, a couple years. And there's a link to this on the links page if you're interested in finding out more or in telling your librarian, hey, get this for our library. And that is by Amanda, Moeckel. McKell? I'm not sure how to say that last name. One more book that I put out, and some of you might recognize this, Beethoven Lives Upstairs. I watched this when I was little in my music class in elementary school as a VHS at the time. I own it for my classroom on DVD, but this is a book version of that story about Beethoven living upstairs to a little boy, and sort of what happens, what transpires with him living upstairs, and how he composes, and how an outsider who maybe doesn't see Beethoven as this amazing composer, but is just as a neighbor, like what they see and how that translates and how the story changes because of that. And in this book, it's a series of letters. So the uncle writing to Christoph, and little Christoph, the boy, writing to his uncle, and back and forth and back and forth. But it's a fun little book, and it's just a sort of a retelling of that story that you might have in your own DVD or VHS library. And it's a cool little book. This one is by Barbara Nickel, illustrated by Scott Cameron. I put a link on the links page, but it is not being sold by Amazon. They're like third-party sellers, but as always, I put links to Amazon so you can get the ISBN number, and so you can get more information and the author's name and all of that. But go find it on Better World Books, or find it on Thrift Books, or find it on ABE Books, any of those used book websites. Find it in your library, request it. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can get it, but I put the link to Amazon in case you can find it through a third-party seller, or you just want to get other books. You can. Khalida's on Amazon, so if you wanted to get Khalida there, you could. But as always, if you're not interested in purchasing through Amazon, find any way you want to find that book. Okay, so that's a little bit about composers. Like I said, there's a bulletin board. I set books out. I try and infuse a little bit about composers into my lessons and share more about that. One more thing I have to share, and I shared a little bit about this on Facebook, is I now have the most amazing of all puppets. I mean, I have a lot of cool puppets, but this one is really cool. This little piano, what? No? Aha! Inside the piano is Mozart. Mozart actually pops out of the piano. And he is just slightly creepy, and on Instagram his face is all washed out, so it's really creepy. But yeah, it's this fun little Mozart puppet. The cool thing about it is it's actually 2 puppets. It's Folkmanis brand, in case you're interested. Mozart does come out on his own, and his mouth moves. If I can get him. Hello, it is so good to see you again. My German accent's terrible. But Mozart comes out, and actually he pops out of this piano, but your hand can actually go in the piano, so your fingers can go in the keys if you want, which is another sort of fun, silly, cool thing. But they do Velcro together if you're interested. But I mean, if I'm going to be talking about composers this month and I have a Mozart puppet, well, obviously Mozart is going to come out and, you know, talk to the students and give them inspiration and encouragement, or, you know, whatever. But that's a super fun thing that just recently I have learned about. And I was able to do a giveaway with Folkmanis, the puppet company. They were gracious enough to give away 12 different Mozart puppets to people who are out there who entered the contest on my blog. So thanks to all of you who entered, and congrats to those 12 people who got a Mozart. But Mozart's going to come out and will be another wonderful part of the Focus on Composers in January. I'm so excited for kids to see him, and I am working on my German accent so that he is not so sad. Anyway, I'm going to share a little bit about my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons now that I've gone through. I started out talking about the 2 little toys that I'm going to try out in my classroom, my new dulcimer and my clicker. I talked a bit about composers, and now I'm going to just share my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons really briefly, and then talk a little bit about concerts that are coming up. So I'll start out with kindergarten. Kindergarten, they're going to come in. We do this little poem every single time they come in, kindergarten first and second. And the poem goes, copycat, copycat, 1, 2, 3, do what I do after me. Anything I do, you do the same. That's how you play the copycat game. And this is Tabby. Yes. And Tabby likes to copy. Tabby likes to copy. And we have a fun little game that goes with that. And I talked all about that at the beginning of the year when I talked about how I start out my lessons and some of the processes I do. But it is boring for me, and it's starting to get a little bit monotonous for kids to do that same poem every time they come in. We only do it once or twice, and it leads to a copying game where I clap, they clap, I clap, they clap. We do the poem again. We do vocal exploration, do the poem again. We do body percussion, whatever, solfege. There are a lot of things you can do. But now that they understand that process of poem, echo, where we do the poem together, and then I do something, they echo it. I do something, they echo it. I do something, they echo it. Poem together. I do something, they echo. I do something, they echo. I've decided now to change it up a little bit. So instead of doing that copycat poem, we're going to use a poem, but it might be a different poem. So instead of doing just copycat, this time we're going to learn Black Sheep, Baa Black Sheep, Have You Any Wool. We're going to do it as a poem first before we sing it. So, Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. And we'll go through that, I'll teach that, and then that will be our poem that after we do the poem, I'll do something, they'll echo. I'll do something, they'll echo. And then we'll do the poem again. And then I'll do something, they'll echo. I'll do something, they'll echo. So instead of just that basic copycat poem, now I'm throwing in this nursery rhyme that they may or may not know, my kindergartners. Probably don't, but they might. And so, of course, if we're going to do that, I have to pull out my sheep puppet, who makes a sort of a weird sound. I don't really think that that's a sheep sound. Growing up on a farm, I can actually confirm that is not a sheep sound, but it's a funny little sound. So the sheep can help us. Okay, sheep, help us. The sheep can help us learn the poem. Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? And we can actually talk about, is this sheep's wool white or is it black? We can talk about that. That's a fun little thing we can do. And I actually have somewhere the book, Baa Black Sheep, but I don't know that I brought it with me today, which we can do in a later lesson. But anyway, just changing out that copycat poem so that we have a little bit of variety, but it also is then teaching them a nursery rhyme. And later on, we will sing it, but for right now, we're just doing it as a rhyme. So that was a long explanation for something that would probably take just about that much time, about a minute or two, not very long. It'll probably take longer the first time to teach Baa Black Sheep, but otherwise the process goes pretty quickly. We do Wee Willie Winkie, which is another finger play. It's another little poem. Wee Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs, downstairs, in his nightgown, rapping at the window, crying at the lock. All the children in their beds, for it's 8 o'clock. And that's just a simple little finger play rhythm that we'll do, and then we'll do the finger play, which is you make your fingers act out the story. So, Wee Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs, downstairs, in his nightgown, rapping at the window, crying at the lock. All the children in their beds, for it's 8 o'clock. And we'll actually act that out with our fingers, but we'll go through that pretty quickly. We're going to then change the poem a little bit. Once we've learned it, we've gone through it 2 or 3 times, to lead us to the next part of the activity. Wee Willie Winkie skips through the town. What would his fingers look like? This is running. What would skipping look like? What about if he tiptoed through the town? Wee Willie Winkie tiptoed through the town. And it gives us a chance to repeat the poem 2 or 3 more times with a little bit of a change so that kids are still interested and hooked in. We could then do that ourselves, and not just with our fingers, but actually with our whole bodies. We could walk through the room, tiptoe through the room, skip through the room if we want it as an extension, if we have time. We sing about Wee Willie Winkie. Then there's a song called Willem Had 7 Sons. Willem, he had 7 sons, 7 sons, 7 sons. Willem, he had 7 sons, and this is what they said, or what they did. I'll have to look at that before tomorrow. But each verse is another thing that one of the 7 sons did. And it's a fun little cumulative, well, I make it cumulative, a fun little cumulative song that kids learn, and they get, again, little actions that they can do. And then we do Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill. So it's a whole day of rhymes and poems and small things. Jack and Jill, we learn the poem. Most of the kids know it, actually. But we go through the poem once or twice, and then I take a xylophone and set it up on its side, and we do Jack and Jill. One mallet is Jack, one mallet is Jill, and we get to play a little game with Jack and Jill up and down the xylophone. I have a whole video about that process of Jack and Jill and how I teach it and how I process through it. So if you want to see a more in-depth version of that, I put a link to that on the links page so that you can see how I do Jack and Jill basically from start to finish with full in-depth ideas about that. But this whole day is like rhymes, poems, small things that are going to build. But because it's the first day in the semester, it's a lot of just like learning the poems and doing the very basic version of it. Some they'll know a little bit of or a sliver of, but we're going to expand on and try a little bit more. That's kindergarten. First grade, again, like I said, we've been doing copycat. So now we're going to change it up, and instead we'll do copycat maybe once. And then instead of doing the copycat rhyme, we're going to change to Little Bo Peep Has Lost Her Sheep. Oh my gosh, hey look. I have a sheep puppet. The same one I use for kindergarten. Perfect. So Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, wagging their tails behind them. So this is a great one to replace copycat, because copycat is in 2. Copycat, 1, 2, 3. And Little Bo Peep is in 3. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep and doesn't know where to find them. So now when I do an echo activity, instead of doing clap, 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 clap. Instead of doing that with kids, now it's going to be in triple. Leave them alone and they'll come home, wagging their tails behind them. Kids will clap in 3. Dun, da, da, dun, da, da. And it gives us something different, and because excuse me, because they're used to the poem and what they're used to the feel of the poem, the clapping and echoing in 3 won't be an issue. Hopefully they'll just sort of naturally move it right into that. That transitions to Hunt the Cows. Let's see if I can find that book. So I have this really old book called Traditional Nursery Rhymes, and when I was trying to figure out which songs and which, here's Baa Black Sheep, Eyes of Trapani. this one we'll use in kindergarten in a week or two. Once we've learned the poem and we've learned it as a song, then we'll pull this book out, which is a fun sort of reimagination of how the Baa Black Sheep poem goes. But when I was trying to figure out which poems and which finger plays and things I wanted to replace Copycat, I pulled out this book, Traditional Nursery Rhymes. A lot of old ones that I'm not going to use because they are racist or sexist or inappropriate content. People die a lot in nursery rhymes. Animals die a lot in nursery rhymes. But the book is great to use for me as a resource. I don't set it out for kids, but it's great for me to use as a resource. And I got it at Half Price Books for $3.98, but probably for less than that. I've got this book called Nursery Rhyme Songbook. This is a little bit more tame, not as many old, sad rhymes that I have to edit out. This one actually has a lot of usable things in there. And then I also have this book by Tom Glazer called I Winker, Tom Tinker Chin Chopper, 50 Musical Finger Plays. Another great book that you can have in your classroom. And I just use these as reference books, but it's fun to go through them and say like, what could I use from here? What could I pull from here? And so the Hunt the Cows that I'm doing, I think, comes from this very old one. And it sort of fits right in with this idea of Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep. Let's see if I can find the exact one. Oop, nope, not in there. Oh yeah, wake up you sleepyheads and go and find the cattle. Wake up you sleepyheads and go and find the cattle. Actually, I think that's not in the right key, but I think I actually pulled that from a Lynn Kleiner book, which I don't have here. Anyway, it goes, the cows are lost, the sun is warm, I think I'll wait till they come home. And so there's some really fun little actions that Lynn Kleiner has. I think that's in her book, Farm Sounds, and she has some little actions and things that you could use in your classroom. So it's fun to go from Little Bo Peep who's lost her sheep to the cows who have left their pen. And it's a fun little thing where you can teach a little bit of an A-B form, and there's some movements and actions that can go with that. We do Fish, Fish, Little Fish, I'm Going to Catch You, which is a silly song I made up a couple of years ago, but we're moving from the barnyard to the ocean, and we're still catching fish. Only in this one, the catching is not a shepherd or a cowpoke who's catching the animals. It is either an octopus or a shark who's catching the animals, and for different reasons. But it's one that we actually learned in kindergarten. We're bringing back. It's going to be incorporated into our concert a little bit later, but it's one that I wanted to make sure that we started on and just refresh in our memory. And I've linked to a whole video where I talk about that whole process using an octopus puppet and little finger puppets that you can try out. But that's linked in the links page if you're interested in finding the process for that one. And then 5 little speckled frogs. 5 little speckled frogs sitting on a speckled log. Da, 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 da. Another fun animal song, and you'll see why in a little bit when I talk about the concert. But another just animal theme for the day, finding animals, catching animals, losing animals, gaining animals. But just another fun, that one is 5 Little Speckled Frogs. Is actually a pretty tricky song with a pretty wide range. So I'm excited to see how it works for my little firsties. I'm a little nervous that I'm going to have to change that one, but I wanted to try it and see how it might work with them and see if it would work for them. Second grade is also starting to prepare for a concert. First and second are both doing that. Again, we're going to do Copycat once, and then we're going to switch it out for Bate Bate Chocolate. There are a lot of versions of that, so if you're interested in that, do a 30-second Google search. You can find tons of different versions, all that say traditional Mexican poem. None of them are the same. So find the one that you think is either the most authentic or works the best for your lessons or works that you think is the most right for you in your classroom, and check your sources and try that out. But it's a fun little poem that kids get to try out, and it's going to fit right into our concert theme. But that'll replace Copycat. So Bate Bate Chocolate, we'll say that all together, and then we'll do echoing, and then again, and then echoing, and then echoing, and then again, and then echoing. Then we'll do Merrily We Roll Along. And I'm adding a little B section spoken poem that I just sort of made and created that I'm hoping we'll be able to use for our concert for in a few months. But Merrily We Roll Along, just the traditional song, and we're going to see how that works and see if that works with kids. But I'm going to try it this week, and then I'll report back next week to whether the B section works or not. We'll do London Bridge is Falling Down, another one that we did in the previous year that we're going to pull out and resurrect and change a little bit and add into the concert. And then I's the Buy That Sails the Boat, a traditional folk song from Newfoundland. Another fun one from another place that's not Georgia that challenges them a little bit. This one's tricky to teach and with my second graders is tricky because the language is tricky, but also the actions in the song that we use are just a little bit tricky, but it's a very fun song for kiddos to try out. Third grade, we're pulling from the fall, one that we did, Sarah Sponda. We're going to pull that out and fill it out just a little bit more. So if you don't know that song, Sarah Sponda, Sarah Sponda, Sarah Sponda, ret set set, Sarah Sponda, Sarah Sponda, Sarah Sponda, ret set set, adore-o, adore boom deo, adore boom de ret set set, ase paseo. It's a really old song. I actually have a favorite folk song kit that I use when I teach the song. Gives a little bit of the context about the song, because for every song I sort of like to talk about where did it come from, do we know who wrote it, do we know the country it comes from, the origin, or what's the context of this song. I like giving that information so that kids know that music is not just static, it's not just a part of this classroom, that music is a part of the world and the music is a part of cultures. And so why are we doing this song, or where does it come from, how does it fit into other people? And so I use my favorite folk song set for that to give them a little bit of an idea of where it comes from in the context. But in the kit, there's also a link to a video where there's a rhythmic game that you can add to it. And so we've learned the song already. We've learned some of the rudimentary movements. We're going to let it flourish a little bit in this lesson. And then we're going to do a quick recap, reading rhythms. They've been reading rhythms for a couple of years now, but we're going to be adding in the 16th note. I use a set of stories called Note Neighborhood when I teach new rhythm values, new note values. Just because I've learned that giving kids a story to go along with the concept helps them remember it a lot better. So, and that's true, I think, for anything. I mean, I remember that when I was learning Spanish. If I learned a story to go along with something, or I learned, cognate, or I learned something that I can connect with, it helped me to cement that idea in my memory a lot better. So when I teach these new note values, like the 16th note, the kids meet a new neighbor in the neighborhood. I use Takadimi, you could use Tika Tika, you could use whatever rhythm syllable system you want, but in my story, they meet this neighbor, and the neighbor is quirky and interesting and fun, and they get to play around with that. But that's a PowerPoint presentation that we go through that they just get so hooked on, and I don't know if it's because it looks like a cartoon, or because they like the story, or because they're just interested in the content, but for some reason using the note neighborhood seems to help them. So in this lesson, we get to do a little Sarah Sponda, we remember what we already learned in our note values, and then we add in the 16th note and apply a little bit. 4th and 5th grade, I am really interested to see how it goes because we're starting in on a ukulele unit. I did ukulele last year with 4th and 5th grade, so my 4th graders, I'm basically going to take the plan, the things that worked from last year, and sort of try and recreate it this year. And my 5th graders will have hopefully remembered everything from the previous year. They already have experience, so hopefully they'll remember all of that and we'll be able to build on that. And I'm going to start a ukulele club in about a month and a half. So again, hopefully they'll remember things and they'll be able to focus on what they can add on. So we're going to see how that works. But basically, each of these lessons, 4th and 5th grade, it's going to start with a little bit of a rehash of something I remember from before. So 4th grade is going to start with Farmer's Dairy Key, which we learned in the fall. 5th grade is going to start with, they're going to just jump right in. But 4th grade is going to start with Farmer's Dairy Key, and then we'll talk a little bit about the ukulele, different parts of it. On the very first day, I show a quick PowerPoint that shows like the different parts of the body of the ukulele, some of the important names. We talk about those key things like chord, strumming, frets. We talk about all of those. And then we talk about our finger numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's important. For later, we do a little finger exercise game that I saw from the amazing Lorelei Batislang at a conference a couple years ago. I'll put a link to her stuff. She is so great. Lorelei is helping to make a purposeful pathways for ukulele with Roger Sam. So I'm really excited for that to come out so I can use it in my classroom. But Lorelai in my brain is like ukulele goddess. She's so smart and knows so much. And I was so fortunate to see her at TMEA last year. So I'm taking some of her ideas and infusing them into my lessons, but I will try and link to anything she has shared and share that with y'all. But I'm going to do a quick little finger game to help them remember their finger numbers, give them a little bit more dexterity with their fingers, and then we actually get out the ukuleles and learn how to hold it and learn how to strum. And we just strum open and we talk about where to strum and how to strum. And then we learn one chord on this first day. We learn C. And we put down one finger and we get a strum. And if we're lucky, if we get to there in time, we'll sing Farmer's Dairy Key again, just with a C accompaniment. Who knows if that'll work with my kiddos coming back after break, learning all of that so quick. Because that's a lot of things. To me, I'm like, that's rudimentary. But for fourth graders, that's a lot. Especially if they've never held an instrument like this. They've never tried it. It's a lot. So I've sort of loaded this lesson up with more than they can handle so that if we can get there, we'll keep going. But if we have to stop along the way, we will stop along the way, and we'll focus on finger numbers or focus on names or focus on open strumming or whatever we need to do. But I have it scaffolded out. So like, what next? What could we do? What would we do after that? I even have a part down here of extensions after what I shared with you. So in case we need more, we have more. But with something brand new like this for them, you never know. And then fifth grade, we're going to pull all the things that we remembered from last year, hopefully, and move through. So we ended in a great place in fourth grade. So what we're going to do in fifth grade now, actually the very opening activities, we're going to read very, very basic rhythms, tas, titis, and ta rests. So quarter notes, eighth notes, and quarter rests. Like super basic. They're going to be like, this is way too easy, Mr. Rao. What are we doing this for? But then we're going to change from rhythm syllables to reading with numbers. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. We're just going to do quarter notes and eighth notes and quarter rests for this first day. And I don't spend a ton of time doing this. I do process them through doing numbers in fifth grade because I think that when they get to middle school, it'll be helpful if they can count the way we've counted all throughout elementary school, but also if they at least understand how the numbering system works, gives them sort of oh yeah, when they get into band or choir. So we do just a little bit of that just to start the lesson. That's maybe 5 minutes at the beginning of the lesson, 10 minutes, just to sort of give them that exposure. And then when their brains are burned out, stressed, then I'll be like, guess what? We're moving on to ukuleles because they like those and we'll remember lots from last year. So we'll move on to something they're a little bit more successful. But that beginning of the lesson is like, these rhythms are so easy, except I'm going to change how you have to say them. So we'll see how that goes. What we're going to try with ukulele in fifth grade on this first day, we're going to do those finger exercises like last year to remember our finger numbers and give us more dexterity. We're going to go quickly run through the PowerPoint, re-identify the different parts of the ukulele, talk about strumming, and then hopefully we'll get to at least try out some of the chords that we did from the previous year. And the chords that we learned were C, F, G, G7, A minor, and A. I didn't expect that we're going to do a song with all 6 chords tomorrow, but I would like to have their fingers move along and at least try them and see how we can do. My ukuleles have little dots on the fretboard, and I've shared about, there's a link on the links page to a whole video about ukulele, getting started, the processes, the resources I used. So if you're zooming through this ukulele thing, I want to know more about this ukulele thing, I have a whole video all about just ukulele. So if you're interested in that, that's on the links page. But one of the things I share about on there is that my ukuleles on the fretboard have little dots, little colored dots that help kids place their fingers in the right spots. I found that's just so helpful for kids, and it just makes the whole process a lot easier. And when they get really good at that, they sort of stop looking at the dots or stop looking as much. But the dots are a super helpful, not crutch, but structure, a scaffold to help them get through there. I actually remember in the workshop with Lorelai last year at TMEA, she talked about how for a long time she's like, no, we're not doing the dots. We're going to power through. We're going to learn it the hard way. We're going to do it. And eventually she said, she's like, no, why would I fight this and make it so hard? Why not just try with the dots? So she actually started putting the dots on, and it made the process a lot easier. And then when they're ready, you can take the dots away. But to start with the dots really is super helpful. Yeah, we're going to see how far we go on that. I have a couple songs from last year, see if we can play along. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to sure try. I've never been able to do a second year of ukulele because it's my second year having them. So we're going to see how it works. Who knows? Okay, in the few minutes that I have left, I wanted to share a little bit about my concert planning because first grade and second grade is getting prepared for a concert. So when I do a concert with my younger grades especially, there are a lot of things you can do. You can do the prepackaged programs that you buy, like a John Jacobson I shared about in the fall. I did that with fourth grade. You can do something that you find on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can do something you find online. You can be inspired by other people. When I try and do my first grade or second grade concerts, I try and just pull songs that we're going to do in class anyway, or songs that fit the standards and fit the pacing guide and fit the expectations for that grade. And I try and sort of just mold them, hodgepodge them into a theme or into an idea that we can then share with our parents. But I always want it to be core content that we're going to learn anyway, that's important anyway. And so what I sort of do is give myself a really general theme at the beginning of the year. Like, okay, it's not until April, but first grade is going to be this general thing. And second grade is going to be this general thing. And then in that process, like starting in August, I can start saying like, okay, this is a really great grade level appropriate song that I can teach to first grade that we can bring back in the spring and add as a part of the concert. Perfect. Okay. And it gives me a chance to plan throughout the year and sort of front load all those songs and process through them like I normally would in my class anyway, and then be able to bring them out and let them sort of bloom into a concert. So, for example, my first graders were going to do a zoo concert. So for me, in my head, any animal song is free game. I can't hit too heavy on those barnyard songs because then it'll feel like a farm concert. But if I pull out like a cow song or, a frog song, that might be a barnyard song, but it could fit into a zoo theme. You can tweak a couple little things, you can change a couple little things and make it just sort of flow right into that theme. So zoo is my theme for first grade. Traveling around the world is my theme for second grade. And I think I'm going to be able to use a book to pull my second grade concert together as well. Last year I did Under the Ocean for second grade. I knew at the beginning of the year, ocean, something ocean, that's going to be my theme. And then along the way I found a lot of really great songs that I could use in that concert. I found a lot of really fun things that would go along, easy costumes, cool set things. And then I found this book, Commotion in the Ocean by Giles Andre. That was a perfect thing where I could like read a page and then do a song and then read a couple pages and then do a song. And it's really easy to, like, once you have that theme in your head, find a little gem here, find a little thing here and pull it together as you go through the year. So a couple things that I'm thinking about. My first grade concert, we're doing a zoo concert and we learned polar bear, what do you hear? And the polar bear hears, another animal, and that animal hears another animal, and that animal hears another animal. This is a very simple Eric Carle book. It was part of an easy lesson where I sang and kids echoed, and I sang and kids echoed. It was a fun call and response lesson. But the ending is they end up, where are all these animals? How can a polar bear and a hippopotamus and a flamingo and a zebra all be in the same place? They're in a zoo. So this is a song, a lesson that we already did. We did it in the fall. The kids liked it. They had so much fun. Guess what? This could be the book that pulls our concert together because they're in a zoo. That's the setting for the zoo. So this is something that I'm considering. How am I going to fit it in? How am I going to make this a part of the thing? But the other cool thing is if you use a book like this, well then any animal that's in this book, you can sing a song about that animal. And guess what? It's part of the concert. So, that's one thing. You can use a book if you want. You can use a poem. You can just use the theme and just, anything that flows in there goes with that. My second grade concert is an around the world traveling concert, and I'm considering using this illustrated version of What a Wonderful World. The illustration is by Tim Hopgood, an amazing, amazing illustrator. I'm considering using this sort of as the hook, as the impetus that goes with the song. But these are just beautiful, beautiful illustrations. that are so much fun. And if I can, email out to parents and say, hey, our concert is inspired by this song in this book, you should go buy it for your home library. It's great to tell parents, like, here's the book that you can go get to be a part of this fun concert. You don't have to get it, but if you want to get it, oh man, you could read it at bedtime. It'd be so cool. Parents love that. They love to be able to make that cool thing that's happening at school happen in their house. So it'd be cool to be able to send out to parents, there's this amazing book, go get it, and we're going to use it in our concert. But I'm considering using that, but all of the songs that you heard when I talked about my second grade lesson, Merrily We Roll Along, London Bridge, Eyes the Eye That Sails the Boat, we're going to learn a dance to La Raspa, even the poem that I started out with, Bate Bate Chocolate, that can also factor into the program if the theme is traveling around the world or just traveling. That can all sort of flow into there. The first grade concert I told you about is going to be the zoo. So any of the things that we're learning in this lesson, fish, fish, little fish, 5 little speckled frogs, they could be frogs in the rainforest, who knows, hunting the cows, petting zoo. I don't know. It's easy to throw that in there. Let's see. Little Bo Peep. We're going to talk about other animals. Maybe Bo Peep has also lost. Who knows? There are lots of little things. We did another song earlier in the year called Matilda the Gorilla. That's another one you can pull in. But the great thing is that if you choose a general theme like the zoo or the circus or the farm, so many of our songs in kinder and first fall under those themes and would easily pull into a concert. You could add a B section, you could sing them twice, you could add an accompaniment track or whatever, and it makes the song seem a little bit more elevated past that classroom level, even though really it's all those classroom skills that are just coming up into the concert. But in my general planning stages, I just give myself that idea, I give myself that inspiration, and then I look and I search. A couple places that I always look. I look in my classroom library, I look in my school library, I look for a book that might hook. I look for poems that might be a great hook, or a transition poem or a transition song. A couple places I also like to look. This book from the John Feyerabend series, The First Steps in Music. This is a great book with so many fun little songs and rhymes and cool things in here that you could easily include as songs in the program or poems in part of the program that can help hook and bring all that together. For the two concerts I'm doing, I'm pulling a lot from Lynn Kleiner's book, SOS Songs of the Sea. I'm pulling, there are a couple fun like around the world songs that we're going to use for second grade, and there are a couple animal songs in here that are really great. I'm also pulling from her other book, Jungle Beat. This is another Lynn Kleiner book from Music Rhapsody, and just some really fun little songs in here, fun little accompaniments that I can use either when we're teaching the song in class or when we're doing it as a performance for parents. But when I give myself that just general theme and I go to all my favorite resources, you just start finding like, ooh, I could use this. I could maybe use this. Ooh, this one would be so easy to teach. I could teach it in one day and we could pull it and change this other thing. The cool thing about Lynn Kleiner's books especially is that she has a lot of little like tips and ideas in here about like, ooh, add percussion instruments, or here's another suggestion for movement. Here's a suggestion for a follow the leader game. What also is cool about her books is she also has in the back a lot of little crafty things you can do, which you could use for scenery. She has ideas for costumes in some of these books and things, just some really cool things that you can pull out and use either just in the classroom lesson, or you can give ideas to your classroom homeroom teacher to use, or you could use as, decoration or costume or whatever. But it's fun little extras that are just already included for you in the book. So as you're pulling all those ideas, you can also pull out, ooh, hey, this is a great idea for scenery. Ooh, this is a great little art project that students can do that can, go in the hallway by the art room and by the music room as parents are walking down to the concert. But these books are just full of great little ideas like that. But like I said, I just give myself that general theme, and then I start looking, and I start pulling, and I start gathering it all together. I look a lot on Pinterest, and in fact, I do my own little Pinterest on my desk, and I have a little pile of all the ideas and things that I can use. And I don't use all of them for the concert, but I definitely file them away and keep them for the next time I do the concert in case I want to change it, or I want to add something, or I want to do something else. There are some songs from last year from my ocean concert that I had in my pile of like options that I didn't use that I'm now going to use for Around the World, or I'm going to use now for the zoo concert. But having those options gives you options. Okay, that's a lot to talk about in one quick hour, but I started out the video by talking about my new dulcimer and about my new clicker. If you're interested in either of those, there's a link on the links page. I talked about my focus this January on composers on the bulletin board I'm going to put up, a couple of the books that you might be interested in, and my cool new Mozart puppet. I ran quickly through my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons for the week and talked about a lot of little video links that you could also find on my links page if you want a more in-depth idea about that. And I talked a little bit about concerts. One last thing, and I started the video out talking about this, but if you're going to be at Oklahoma Music Educators or Georgia Music Educators this month, I'm going to be there. And I hope that I'll be able to see you at one of my sessions, or I hope you'll just reach out and say hi. It'd be so nice to meet lots of you folks in person. Okay, go have a great week. Have fun teaching your kids. Bye, everyone. Have a great night. Bye, Facebook Live. Thanks so much for coming along. Hope you have a great night.